Welcome to Hot Takes, brought to you by 50cupstea.com, where united we sip, discuss, and learn. Join us as we dive into the hottest takes on culture, business trends, and the threads that bind us. Get ready for inspiring stories, candid conversations, and a fresh perspective on living a healthy, fulfilled life. Grab your cup and tune in. Let's get started.
Happy New Year, everyone, and welcome to the 50 Cups Hot Takes. And I got to tell you something, I am excited about this new year, and I'm also excited sitting across from Jim Baker, who happens to own this fabulous tea company as well. Happy holidays. How was it for you?
Yeah, it's great. Great. Happy New Year to you. And another year has gone by, as they say in the Christmas Carol. And I'm excited for 2025.
So am I. I think a lot of people are. And we haven't gotten together in a while. And so I kind of missed the teas.
Yeah. So today we had a little immune booster. Thankfully, I'm not one of them, but it seems like over the holiday season, we've heard stories of colds and flus and COVID again and all this other stuff. And so I thought, that we just continue with our immune booster today. So I have my handy dandy Yeti that's filled with hot water. And I'm going to take these two giant, robust tea bags, and I'm going to, one's leaking a little bit, and I'm going to put them in, and we'll let that steep for about 3 or 4 minutes, and we'll pour it out.
I was hoping you'd do this because we always get a letter from the school at this time. Your child can't come to school and there's a long list of things. It's that time of year where people are getting sick. So, and this will help. I can't wait to taste it. I have not tasted a bad tea yet from your company yet.
Well, that's good to hear. It's good to hear. We had a lot of orders over the holidays, which is good too.
Oh, good.
We are by no means a wildly successful tea company yet, but we are making strides. So I appreciate the dress.
You're looking quite nice.
Yeah, you as well. You got the sweater vest and everything today.
Yeah. Yes, I did.
Yeah, that's good. So thankfully, I do have a couple people that watch this Hot Takes, and one in particular is out in Arizona, and he has a nickname. His name is Mako, M-A-C-O. And
Mako?
His real name is Chris McDonald, and he's a good friend of the family's. We grew up together in Ridgefield, Connecticut. I am older than Mako by about 4 or 5, maybe 6, 5 years, I guess. Mm-hmm. And but he was a really good friend with my brother Mike. And the McDonalds were this family of, I think, 5 boys, and they were giants. Every single one was bigger than the other one. And I coached a couple of the kids when they were younger, Tommy and Timmy. And Tommy went on to be a FBI agent who lives now in the Northeast, and he helped crack the Whitey Bulger case a few years ago. Timmy's gone on to be a successful leader in the educational field, and his other brother, Michael, was a Division I basketball coach for a while, and he's got a couple kids, I think, that played Division I basketball at this point in time. And then Mako, who is a great individual, but the 3 older brothers, and then their other brother, Johnny, they were all really good basketball players. And Chris never really got the athletic gene. But nonetheless, he got the humor gene. And so he's talking to my brother, I guess, sometime in early December. And he's like, hey, which with your brother? And my brother's like, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, I watched the Hot Takes. And he's always wearing like these golf shirts. And he's got the collar open. And, he looks like he's barely wearing any clothes. He looks like he's... from the deep South, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And, I'm like, well, usually when we're taping these things, it's hot outside and I'm not walking around, wearing a coat or anything. Mm. But then I thought to myself, it's time for professional dress to come back in. And I appreciated Mako's humorous cut on me to get me to think a little bit differently in 2025. So, this year we're going to present a lot more professional. And I just want to thank Mako for that.
Well, thank you, Mako. I got the text late last night.
Yeah.
Dress up, you bum. Something like that.
So if I can get Mako and the rest of the McDonald's to buy some tea at some point in time, that'd be great too. But unfortunately, their father passed away a few years ago, but their mother, Pat, is still alive. And she's a really good friend of my mom's. And so shout out to the Makos, and the McDonald's in this case, and to Mako in particular for making me think a little bit differently in 25.
If they wanted to buy tea for their mom, who I understand likes tea, how would they do that?
Yeah, 50cups.com, and I'm sure if their mother is like my mother, they'll probably need a little help, to get to the website and to click that button especially the password when you need a password to get on your iPad to begin with. But that's another story for another time. But yeah, they can just go to 50cupstea.com.
Right. Well, I had a great holiday. You as well. You love giving things. This year was the big gift in your household.
Yeah. A lot of mini gifts, know, and my kids.
You look like the kind of guy who would give many gifts.
No, mini, I said.
Oh, mini gifts.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
In fact, we try to, cut back as our kids get older and older. Yeah. There isn't a need to, provide, we don't need to be Santa Claus times two,
Right.
So it's a little bit of not necessarily it's a positive debate, but it's a debate between my wife and I every year. But we try to, give them some things that hopefully that'll be educational.
Mm-hmm.
So books, et cetera. And this year I gave them we're Catholic, each of them a monthly missalette that they could, a yearly missalette actually, that they could, if they're going to go to Mass on Sunday, they could follow it. And then if they don't go to Mass, hopefully they'll open it up. And
nice.
Hopefully it won't be used as a, coaster or anything else
something
during
on the
year.
bird cage or something like that.
Yeah. But it reminded me though of Christmas.
Yeah.
Right. You get all these presents, and what happens is you spend all this money on wrapping paper,
yes,
tape,
yes,
and they sit there underneath the tree for a week or so, maybe maybe not a week, but in some cases maybe 2 hours.
Yes.
If you're hustling around at the end,
yes.
which most of us do.
Yep.
And you're taking it out of the beautiful Amazon box, right? Or
you believe it's a beautiful box too, Jim.
Well,
I see nothing wrong with the Amazon box, but continue.
I didn't mean to. And then obviously when you open the Amazon box, you got the other, wherever you bought the product from.
Yes.
It's usually in another box.
Yes.
Or it's in some really well wrapped, plastic.
Yes.
So you're going through this layer of stuff that you're just ripping apart and tossing out to get to the actual product that you bought.
Right.
And then you're turning around and you're wrapping it.
That's right.
And I started thinking to myself, with this focus on this environmental stuff that we've been brainwashed with over the last, 30, 40 years, some of it's good, by the way, that, man, we waste a tremendous amount of resources, boxing, sending, rewrapping. So I looked it up. 2.3.
I knew you would look it up. How much is it?
2.3 million pounds of wrapping paper just for the Christmas season alone.
Wow. And that's got to go somewhere.
Yeah. And in my house, I'm like the garbage guy. So we all sit around and we slowly open gifts, for a couple hours. And that's probably going to change once our grandkids get a little bit older, because they're going to want to rifle through things in about 5 seconds flat. But I'm the guy, they ball it all up and then they throw it at me. And then I put it in a giant plastic bag. So at the end of the day, within, 3 hours of opening gifts, we have this big giant, bag of wrapping paper that gets thrown right into the trash can and it gets carted off.
Right. Not to mention the boxes.
Oh,
and all that other, and those, I hate them. What are they? That popcorn stuff that they put in some of these boxes. Hate it.
Yeah. Then you got to take the boxes, you got to break them apart.
Yes.
Stick them in the recycling bin, because God forbid they take them, intact in the recycling bin. And then obviously if the bin's full and you don't really feel like driving to the dump, what do you do with the boxes?
That's a good question. What do you do with the boxes, Jim?
Throw them in a garbage can.
That's right.
So, and these boxes are pristine. They're brand new. They're clean.
Yes.
They got the beautiful tape. They got everything. I'm thinking, why not just give the box to somebody and write their name on it?
I agree. I also think Amazon could do us all a great favor if they would just give us a little flashier box when they deliver the item. Maybe they could change up the colors, more Christmassy kind of a feel, and therefore we could skip the entire wrapping process. Put a bow on it, we're ready to go.
It's not a bad idea, actually.
Well, maybe you would like to invest in that idea, Jim. But no, I know what you're saying, and I actually filled a pickup truck full of boxes and wrapping paper, and I could burn on where I live. So it was a heck of a bonfire. But I also said, my goodness, what a waste of time and a waste of product that just went up in flames.
And I don't think anybody, I think people appreciate the fact that something's wrapped.
Sure.
But in reality, they really don't, because they're tearing it apart in 5 seconds flat to see what's underneath it. Right. Because nobody gets a gift that just puts it on their shelf and stares at the wrapping paper for the next 6 months or a year.
Right.
And to your point about burning, we were told years ago when we lived in Connecticut, you can't burn because your fireplace is going to catch on fire at some point in time with all the stuff that sticks to the chimney, going up. So we can't put that stuff back in the air. And so now it just goes into a landfill. And we talked about this before, there's a lot of plastics in the wrapping paper. So how long does it take for that to biodegrade, back into the soil? And then what's that do to the soil down the road? So anyhow, why not just brown paper bags, or something simple for wrapping? I know we have that out there, but nobody buys it.
I mean, Jim, do you ever just relax and not have deep thoughts? But I mean, that's amazing. The figure alone, 2.3 million pounds of wrapping paper. I would never have thought of that. And that's a lot of stuff that needlessly is thrown into landfill. Yeah,
you got to figure that with birthdays and everything else and all the other celebrations we have during the year that, you got to double that at least, right?
Yes.
Every single year. So.
Well, I have over the years been very successful in proving my inability to wrap gifts.
It's going to be hot, so be careful.
Okay, thank you. Which excludes me from that process. I am the burn guy or the garbage guy like you. So this is going to help with the immunity, this tea?
It'll boost your immunity. It's very good tasting. And a nice cold day like today, I think it should be very refreshing to you.
Oh, that is really good. Yeah. That is really good.
And you're very brave, by the way, because I have to wait for mine to cool down a little bit more before I can drink it.
Really?
I'm sure the McDonald's.
I'm getting older. Smell and feel just kind of goes away. Did you ever get into this? There's this almost a fanatical religious movement where you had to get on a waiting list and you had to stand in line and just wait for that next updated iPhone. Have you done that, Jim? Have you waited outside the Apple store for?
No.
Why? Well, it seems like a lot of people are really into it. And I've never understood that.
Yeah, I don't get it either, but this is my story. So this is the iPhone 16, the new one. I had a 12.
You have the brand new one?
Yeah. Well, here's the story.
I'm still on 13. Go ahead.
So I had the 12, and thing was running fine until I did the last software update, which I'm sure all of you have experienced, probably about 3 weeks ago. And then probably a week after the software update, my Face ID stopped working. So I thought, well, maybe it's me. Maybe I've changed. Maybe the sunlight's not hitting me the right way.
Right.
Maybe I got one eye closed. I mean, who knows, right? So kind of ignore it. I'm just doing the annoying passcode to get in all the time.
Yes.
And probably after about a week and a half of that, I decided I'm going to go online and look up the Face ID. And basically it says, hey, you might have a bug, in your software, and download the newest version of the software. So now I'm terrified because the previous version caused this, and a friend of mine went and downloaded the newest version, and then he said he had a whole screen issue, and at the end of the day, he had to get a new phone. So he's warning everybody, don't do it. So I didn't do it, but I did what everybody else does when you go to solve a problem, turn it off.
Yes.
And then start it up again, and maybe it'll reboot itself and everybody will be happy again. So I turned it off, waited the traditional 30 seconds, which is probably the same rule of the 6-foot rule we had during COVID, where it came out of thin air.
That's a great analogy, yes.
And we hit the 2 buttons again to crank it up, and the Apple logo comes on. I think, okay, I'm getting ready to rock here. Mm-hmm. And then the Apple logo goes off. About 15 seconds later, it comes back on, and then it goes off. So it's basically fading in and out.
Oh.
So stuck. So I did what everybody does, turn it back off, try it again. Repeat myself for about 3 or 4 times, and I'm still in...
Each time with a little hope.
Still in no man's land. Mm-hmm. And this is December 29th, by the way. So I get on to my desktop, which is not a Mac, and I plug in my iTunes password and do everything I'm supposed to do. And basically it's telling me now I got to hit top button for quick, the bottom button quick, then the right button quick, and then that should reset everything. Well, it doesn't. No. Still got the thing just fading in and out.
I think that's when they tape you through the camera.
Probably.
And play it at their Christmas party. But yes.
So then I I decided, well, it's time to talk to somebody online because we are dealing with a tech company and maybe they can solve my problem.
Wow, you went there.
So I went there, and basically this individual, hopefully it was a person, it wasn't artificial intelligence, seemed like a person, or they got really good AI, but they decide that I need to do the same thing over and over again that I've just done, assuming that I haven't followed the directions already.
Of course.
So after we get through the iPhone for dummy portion of it, now we're going onto bigger and better things, and that can't be fixed. I get my daughter, who is a MacBook, iPhone, self-proclaimed specialist. She can't get it fixed. So the last thing we could possibly do is set up an appointment with the genius. Yes. Back at the mall that I vowed never to go to again in my life, and I was really good in 24. I don't think I ever stepped foot in a mall until, well, I didn't actually in 24 because I had to go on January 2nd to the mall to meet with the genius at 2:05 in the afternoon. So I get there, and the place is a mob scene.
It's terrible.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
And they tell me to go sit by the big screen, after I check in. And so I'm waiting for about 15 minutes. The funny thing is I have nothing to occupy my time because my phone doesn't work. So I'm just observing people, and I'm observing the employee base that Apple hires in these stores. And I was in a store probably 5 or 6 years ago. And I know these people are trying really hard, but I thought to myself that must be difficult trying to find people at this point in time to work in the store. I'll just leave it at that. Nonetheless, finally get somebody to help me out. He asked me the same questions that I've already tried to do for the last 3 or 4 days, brings me over, and they start analyzing the software. And he says, if it's going to be a hardware problem, we're going to know. And I said, what's going to be a hardware problem? I'll just know you that right now. And sure enough, within maybe a minute, the big old skull and crossbones comes up and says it's a hardware problem. So I said, well, how much to fix? So then he's got to go through his whole, little database there, and, basically tells me it's $599. There's no guarantee, et cetera, et cetera. It'll take a day or two to fix it, so on and so forth. So I said, the natural question is, well, how much to buy a new phone? And they said for a whopping $799, you get a brand new phone, with Apple Care for a year, et cetera, et cetera.
I think we know which direction you went.
Yes. So I decided to buy the new phone, which then brought me to a different table where I had to wait for a phone salesperson to come over and help me pick the phone. And they're all the same price, by the way, the 14s, the 16s, at least they were on January 2nd. The good news is they were able to connect with Verizon, my provider, and I could get this stuff knocked out within a half an hour or so. And as I'm sitting there downloading my backup, onto my new phone, I'm kind of looking around wondering if anybody's hacking me at this point in time. Because there was a woman sitting at my table who was playing with her phone the entire time. She was not, getting a new phone. And I was just wondering, maybe she's, but who knows? So far it hasn't been hacked. So all good. At the end of the day, she says, do you want an otter case? Because I love otter cases because I always drop the phone.
Right.
And never broke a screen, by the way. And I just want the same exact phone size-wise that I had before.
Right.
She goes, well, the 16 is the same size as the 12. I said, great. I don't need to spend another $20 on an otter case then. But I do have to spend another $20 on a new plug because the cord now is different in 16 than all the other ones.
Of course.
Which drove me crazy, by the way. So I know I could probably go on an Amazon and gotten it for a little bit cheaper, but I wanted to get the charger. So anyhow, I leave after spending over $800 if you throw in tax and everything else, and go home to put the phone in my Otter case, and it doesn't fit because the camera actually on the 16 is a little bit bigger.
Isn't that something?
So it won't fit. Or if you can make it fit, but then it's all awkward on the table and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I have to buy a new case along with a new screen protector because I thought I had a screen protector at home, but I didn't. So after all of this, and I said to the person, does this happen a lot? And his response is, yes, it does. And I'm really sorry, man. That's all they say. I'm really sorry, man. But what do you want to do? And I felt like Apple, along with all these other big tech companies, it's literally like dealing with the government. You're in a box and there's nothing you can do about it unless you want to get rid of the phone.
Right. And what would your life be like without it?
So, it's a great question. So not having that phone working from the 29th through the 2nd was actually good. I didn't need to take it anywhere. I didn't do anything because I knew it wouldn't work.
Right.
So my pants felt better because it wasn't in my pocket. I didn't have to look at a text every 5 seconds. Like, it was good. And I realized, even though I was very annoyed about my Apple experience, and the fact that these phones really only last 3 years, which I did the math, by the way. So you're basically spending 73 cents a day to use a phone, assuming that's going to go belly up after 3 years. And so it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
But I also learned that after having this experience, the phone no longer stays with me 24 hours a day. It stays in a different room at night. And I don't take it with me as many places anymore. And I'm no longer plugging into the auxiliary cord because it doesn't work right now.
Yes.
Because it doesn't fit. So therefore, I'm not being podcasted to death every single day as well. I'm actually listening to some music on the radio, and I'm just driving.
You're going back to older, simpler times.
Yeah.
I remember being able to drive in the car, and that was almost an escape. No one could reach you. Well, this is back in the old days now, before, the pagers and all of that. I mean, you were basically, it felt free and quiet, and now that is not true at all. In fact, it's become, I noticed at stoplights, it takes longer for people to move. I don't know if you've noticed this.
Oh, yeah.
And I know exactly what the problem is. They're down there playing on their phone, right? So, well, I guess what's your takeaway from this? Are you a little saddened that you have the phone? Have you now decided that I'm going to change my lifestyle and maybe use it far less than I have? For instance, maybe you'll use your, well, let me ask you, did you look it up on your phone, the 2.3 million pounds of Chris? You did?
I did, yes. So I do this entrepreneur thing at the local high school here, and I always tell the kids that the phone should be a tool, but it should not be something that's, ingrained in your life per se. And so tool for information, a tool for communication, but it shouldn't be your entertainment tool. It shouldn't be your life tool. And I thankfully never have gone down that road. You're never going to see me scrolling through Instagram 24/7. I don't look at YouTube videos through the phone all day long. I don't download movies onto it. I don't do any of that stuff. I just use it mostly for communication and information. But nonetheless, once you get stuck with that phone and it's with you all the time, then you're almost addicted to the communication part of it. If I get a text, I got to answer right away. Hey, let me check to see if somebody texted me. It's that kind of mindset. And so I'm going to try to change a habit. I'm not going to do a New Year's resolution, next topic, where I'm going to give up the phone, but I'm going to try to change the habit of how I use that phone.
This is just a weird thought. I used to have the old flip phone and that sort of thing, and they got to a point where the carriers would no longer provide service for those kinds of phones. In other words, you were almost forced into becoming more high-tech, which gave you more information, more entertainment, which made you more addicted to the phone. I don't know if they should put a warning label on the phones or not at this point, but a lot of studies do show that this is quite harmful for children as well. So you mentioned New Year's resolutions. This one, it looks like you've already made your decision on. But,
well,
what? You're laughing. What?
Well, I feel, as my wife says, hey, you can't get upset over things you can't control. But it just drives me crazy that I'm stuck with this iPhone because I like it.
Right.
And I don't want to go learn. I tried learning a Droid once and it was a pain in the neck. So I went back to the iPhone.
Right.
But Droid's the same thing. You're just stuck. You can't break out. You can't negotiate. There's not a lot of competition. So at the end of the day, they're nice about it, but they just don't care. It's like, okay, here's my phone, take it or leave it, right? Yeah, we software upgrade because it's supposed to help you. I think it's done maybe to help you a little bit, but it's ultimately done to put more and more junk into your phone. So eventually you got to keep up with the apps, or the apps won't work anymore unless you get a new phone because you have more space and it's faster, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I agree. And a lot of people will stand in line for that opportunity to get the latest and greatest.
I did notice, though, after about an hour and a half of being there, that the 3:30 to 5 o'clock window was the empty window.
Oh.
So if you ever do need to go to the Genius, you want to go to the store, especially during the middle of the week, I would certainly go after 3 o'clock.
Well, there's some good advice. well worth watching the podcast over. Seriously, because you too, in a matter of, well, time's ticking. Who knows? But within 3 years, you will also be at the Apple Store if you have it.
Yes.
Here's a hot take on some 50 Cups tea.
Our detox tea detoxes your body through its carefully crafted ingredients. It contains ginger, which detoxes the body of intestinal gases and cramping, nettle leaf, which stimulates kidney function to eliminate toxins from the body, dandelion root, which stimulates the detox of the kidneys and liver as well as better digestion, burdock root, which purifies blood from heavy metals, milk thistle, which helps to stop liver damage, lemongrass, which soothes the stomach, cinnamon bark, which regulates blood sugar levels, lemon myrtle, which speeds up the breakdown of food, and dried lemon, which helps to protect your liver function.
Visit 50cupstea.com to find out more.
New Year's resolutions. I know that's something you want to talk about. I've kind of fallen away from doing it because I've been terrible at keeping any of them. How do you do? Do you even make them?
I don't. Not anymore. I think they're frustrating in a way because as you know, I exercise a lot. And
yes.
My gym is really crowded now, and it will be until mid part of February. Then it'll get back to normal again. And it happens every single year.
Sure.
And I think everybody has really good intentions. But I don't think New Year's resolutions work for most people. Not all. So don't go attack me on social media, but just for most people. Because you're changing significant things that you've been ingrained in doing for the last 50, 60 or 30 or 20 years of your life.
Right.
And it's impossible to draw a line in the sand for most people and suddenly just change. And that's why you see after a month or 6 weeks, people fall back into their habits. You know, whether it's working out, whether it's I'm quitting drinking. Everybody talks about dry January. But then it's probably a monsoon in March to make up for the dry January, right?
That's true.
So, you know, no matter what it is, it's just difficult for people to change because that's what they've been doing their whole life. And their whole life is their norm, but they think their norm is to be better and something different, when in reality, what they're actually going through is their norm.
Right.
It's like me playing golf, right?
Right.
I stink at golf. I'm a 90 to 100 golfer. Mostly it's 95 to 100, probably 80% of the year, right? But every time I go out in that course, I'm like, man, I hope today I'm going to get back to what I should be doing, which is an 80s golfer. But every time I go out, I do the same exact thing. Maybe 2 rounds a year, I might break 90, and I might have a low round. I had one this year when I shot 81.
That gives you hope.
And while I'm shooting this round, I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Today's just one of those days, right? But you're thinking, this is going to be me from now on. Well, it's not. The norm is you being a bad golfer. Even if you work at it, you're still going to be a bad golfer.
Sure.
Right? You might get a little bit better around the margins, but you're still going to be a bad golfer unless you want to invest significant amount of time in it. So I realized that for me, that's my norm. You know, I still may look in the mirror and think I got a full head of hair. Well, no, my norm is I'm bald. Right? But I think a lot of people think that what they can be is going to be is the norm, as opposed to what they are right now. So if you want to then break out of the norm, then you have to change your habits.
That's true.
And that's what I talked about with this phone. I'm not going to get rid of the phone. I'm not going cold turkey, but I'm just going to change the habit of how I use the phone. If I love Diet Coke, right, and I drink, and I knew a guy that used to drink like 25 Cokes a day.
Oh, wow.
So, but now he just drinks water. But he had to change his habit. So he still drank Diet Coke for a while. He just started reducing it from 25 a day to 23. Eventually he stopped drinking it at lunch. Then he switched to tea in the morning so he didn't drink Diet Coke, in the morning as his little pick-me-up. And eventually he said, you know what, I don't miss it anymore. It's time to, then he can cut the line. But he had to change his habits to break his norm.
And the key there, of course, is you want to do that, right? I mean, you have to be motivated to do something.
Right.
And a lot of these New Year's resolutions is just simply, I think you said good intentions, but it's not as though you really, really desire to do it. It'd be a good idea, and that's why so many people fail. And there's a lot of easy options out there now too, to get the same result, and maybe in the long run, that's even worse. So yeah, I failed at every one of them, Jim. and I was tired of being a failure. I said, this year, my resolution is to not be a failure. No New Year's resolutions. So
then you're 100%.
So far, I'm batting 1,000.
You hit them all.
I got them all. Yeah.
But I mean, you take the person who's 30 pounds overweight, right?
Yeah, right.
And it's December 15th, and they're like, I'm going to go crazy during the holidays because January 1, I'm going to get up at 5:30 in the morning when I normally get up at 7.
Yes.
And I'm going to go walk 4 miles, and I barely walk around the block at this point in time.
Right.
That person's not going to make it.
No.
Most of them aren't. But if they just change the habit, they said, okay, why wait till January 1st? Let me go walk now, right? I'm not going to walk 4 miles, but I'm going to take my dog, or I'm going to just go out by myself, or I'm going to go out with my wife, and I'm just going to walk up and down the street 2 times.
Yeah.
At 5 o'clock at night.
Right.
Instead of having a cocktail, right? Still have my cocktail at 6, but I got my walk in, right? So you're just incrementally, slowly changing. And then if that person's going to wait, January 1, they're ready to go, fine. I would say make your resolution about changing some of your habits, not about drawing a line in the sand and totally trying to change what you've been doing for the last 30 years, because most likely it's not going to work.
Some great advice. It really is. You have another topic you'd like to talk about, and I'm all for it. I really am. And I think this year you can talk about it more, because I think there was some people who would be offended, which sadly is, I think, wrong to be offended by the mention of God. That's with a capital G now, right? We're talking about. Yeah. I'm amazed how important God has become in my life, and maybe that's because of age, and maybe we embrace things, or I do embrace things differently than when I was young. But what is the glory of God to you?
Yeah, I think it's, and probably because you and I are older, we're naturally, I think most people will get closer to God
as you get closer to God.
You don't have a lot of time left,
Right.
You're in the 3rd or 4th quarter of your life. And, but I think for me, I'm more of a doer. And hey, if I go to church, if I try to be a good person, if I do acts of kindness, if I donate money, that's all going to help me, with God, because I'm doing good things. At least in my mind, I am. And I think that's where it kind of changed for me, where I'm doing these things because it makes me feel good. And I know, based on reading the Bible and going to church and hanging out with people that are way more spiritual than I am, that that's gonna help. But am I really putting God first? Or am I putting myself first? I'm a believer, but am I putting myself first over God? And the question is, what does that mean? Right?
I completely hear what you're saying.
So maybe you can tell me what that means, because I'll tell you, but what does that mean?
What does that mean? But I'm in the same boat, where oftentimes I'm thinking, well, am I really doing this because it is the right thing to do, or because somehow in a selfish way I'm gaining something from it? I don't have the answer for you, Jim. Did you use your iPhone and Google something? Do you have the answer? Please don't let me hang.
Well, I don't think there's any simple answer to it.
I don't think there is either.
It's kind of, God gave us these bodies, right? And some bodies they can do anything to it, and they're going to live to 100. And other bodies, they're going to fall apart, and then they're going to go at 20. And it's through no fault of your own. It is what it is.
Right.
Then there's a lot of bodies, that God's given you that you abuse, over time.
That's right.
Not necessarily in a catastrophic way, but you just simply over time, just get into bad habits like we talked about before.
Right.
So for me, I obviously am big into health, and I spend a lot of time, exercising and whatever. And I thought to myself, well, am I really putting God first? Because how much time do I spend a week thinking about God compared to going to the gym, running, sitting in a sauna, doing cold plunges, all these podcast things they tell you to do.
Sure.
Right. So then for me, again, it's changing the habit, in 25, which is, I got to devote more time, to understanding. But it's really more of a mindset of, putting God first and recognizing anything ultimately that we're all here on loan. Rush Limbaugh used to say it, on loan from God, right? None of this stuff is ours. Like I can't take this tea with me when I die. I can't drink it in heaven, hopefully. I can't take anything in this building. I can't take my money. I can't take my family. I can't take anything. Like you're born in this world with no clothes and you leave this world basically with no clothes. So everything is on loan. So by the grace of God, I have this beautiful family, right? But it's not mine. I'm a caretaker.
That's right.
Right. And I think and I'm struggling with that still. It's not something that like I'm going to sit here and give you this great advice today because I'm not. I'm just hopefully getting you to think about, things a little bit differently. And this is a process for me, but, none of this stuff is ours. And I think if you could start with that concept, then hopefully over time, then, some of your mindset changes where it becomes less about you and all the good things you do and, more about, what can I do, for God? What can I do indirectly for my family that God has given me, and then I think nature's a big thing too. People kind of, give RFK a hard time every once in a while when he talks about the God being in nature. But I think, when I first heard that, I'm like, well, what's weird? A tree's a tree. Well, actually it's not. Like, God, this whole earth that we have was created by something, right? And, and I got into a debate with somebody once and they were talking about, he's a chemist teacher, well, chemicals did it. Well, great. How did the chemicals start? Like
That's
there has
right.
to be a beginning somewhere
That's right.
at some point in time. So something had to have started this whole thing. And maybe there's 15, I'm not saying this in a bad way. Maybe our God, there's a God somewhere else in the universe that's their brothers or something. I don't know, right? Or maybe he did everything. I don't know, but I do know this, it had to start from something. And if the premise is if you believe that, then, okay, what's the next step then? And you got to be a good person. You got to do all these wonderful things. Hopefully in your life, you have to have a purpose, et cetera, et cetera. But really, are you putting yourself first doing all these things or are you putting God first? And I think that's my journey. That's one of my habits that I'm going to try to continue to change, in 25, and we'll see how it goes at the end of the year.
Well, I wish you luck with that. I'm on the same journey, and I hope a lot of other people join us because I think ultimately you're right. The word purpose with a beginning means there was intent that this should happen, which I think gives us purpose. Without that, I mean, what would life be like if you felt, well, there's really no reason to be a good person, really, to do anything.
Right.
Right? So I think it's well worth taking the first step if you haven't already. That was deep thought.
Yeah, and it's obviously bad things are going to happen.
Sure.
Bad things have happened in my life, and
Yes.
I know they're coming. Hopefully, I'm strong enough to get through them. And I think my wife and I were talking the other day, and her brother's been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer.
Oh my!
And he needs a liver transplant, to survive. And so he's on the list, which is great. But, we were kind of talking about that. And, I said to her, do you love God more than me and more than our kids?
Do you know what, Jim?
Guess what? I didn't finish first.
I know. Oh, well, that's good. Right?
I didn't finish second.
Oh, no, that's good too, though.
And she's a phenomenal person. I love her to death. But, she thought about it for a little while and she said, I'm not sure about the kids, but, so God's 2, right? Maybe in her mind, or 1.5 or 1. But I don't know if I can answer that question honestly right now either.
My daughter asked me that question, my 9-year-old. Do you love me more than God? And I wanted to say, I love God, but Jim, I would go to hell for her.
Right.
Right? So so that is a tough question. That is a tough question. I wish I could say yes, because I guess that is the appropriate At the same time, Jim, let me put it this way to you. If one of your kids were being threatened with their life and all you had to do was say there's no God and they'd be fine, would you?
It's a tough question.
See, that is a tough question.
Yeah.
But I think maybe that's a little easier if you really truly believe there's a God than you believe that there's a better place. This is too deep for me, Jim. I'm sorry. I'm going to go back to your tea, but it
one
is
thing we did agree on.
Yes.
Was that God forbid something happened to one of our kids, our grandkids.
Yes.
We would obviously be devastated, but we would survive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we would survive because we have faith.
Yes.
And so to me, that was an interpretation of loving God. I think we have human love, which I think is totally different than the love of God, because God's not human. So I think ultimately, I want to feel more human, I guess you could say, with God, with love.
Yep.
But it's that type of an example, I think, that there's two ways you can go. If you have a tragedy, you can
hate.
You can hate, you can be angry. Or you can, accept it and look for the positives and, listen to God and understand what he's trying to tell you. And do you appreciate everything else you have, the other kids that you have still, whatever it is, your life that you have. Hopefully none of us have to ever go through it. But to me, that after we talked about it for a while, that kind of gave me this interpretation of a different definition of love.
Well, I don't want to end on a morbid note, but I'm just going to stress what you already have kind of mentioned, is that as we all go through life, eventually we are going to be at that moment where we're going to die. And you mentioned you don't take anything with you, and you don't. There's nobody with you. When you die, I watched my father's house sell just recently. There's no longer any evidence that the man even lived other than memories. So having said that, I think your topic is very appropriate, because without that, it would be a very difficult thing, I think, even to grieve and go through that if we didn't believe that there is something more. And I do. So, yeah. So
yeah, this wasn't meant to be a
no. And I say
super deep conversation, but I'm thrilled, that I have the opportunity to love him and learn how to love more, right? Because I believe.
I'm with you.
And I just think people out there could think about that, because I got to believe that, people that don't believe, there's got to be some emptiness there that can't be fulfilled unless they turn, and accept maybe that there's something else out there that, can help them.
Yeah,
that's
I agree
not
with you, Jim.
In physical form.
I agree. May I also weigh in on the tea?
Yeah, please.
It's very good. Very, very good. And I like the fact that it was hot. Now it's warm, but it's very good tea, and hopefully it'll prevent that illness that'll be coming from elementary school sometime in the next month or two.
Kids are germ factories. Well,
absolutely.
Happy 25 to everybody, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. And enjoy your iPhones. Just be careful on the downloads. And good luck with that wrapping paper next year.
I hate
those
the new
resolutions.
software that comes in. And by the way, use your iPhone and go to 50cupstea.com. Is that where we go?
There it is, yeah.
There you go. Get some tea. Jim, always good to see you.
Yo, you too.
Thanks for everything.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on Hot Takes 50 Cups. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to visit our website at 50cupstea.com for more great content and delicious organic teas, and listen and watch us on all the leading platforms. Stay connected with us on Instagram at 50cupstea, YouTube, and TikTok. And don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends. Until next time, keep sipping and stay united.